Welcome to part 5 of our P&O Azura 2022 Caribbean cruise. In this video we tour Saint Lucia with Cosol Tours and explore Grenada before it's time to head home back to the UK. Good morning from Saint Lucia. We have docked in Castries at the cruise terminal port and we are just waiting for the deputy captain to give the clearance for us to go ahead to shore. We have got a tour booked that starts in 10 minutes and just for kicks, it's not a P&O excursion, it's a Cosol Tours trip. We did it last time we were here in 2019 and it's a brilliant trip, but we haven't yet got clearance, and once we get off the ship we need to do a temperature check, show our vaccination and get wristbands for the day. So yes, we are just waiting for clearance, and it is now 20 past 8, so this is our meeting time for our excursion, so we shall see. It looks like the tour operators for the P&O cruises excursions are getting ready, so hopefully we'll be allowed off soon because I'd like to do my excursion today. We were eventually given clearance to disembark the ship and made a quick dash to our tour meeting place. Thankfully the tour guide was great and was aware of the delays with Azura. Our tour group consisted of my mum and I and a group of 4 people from Marella Discovery. Once we left the port, our tour took us through Castries and up into the hills, and our first stop was a lookout point where you can see down into Castries and to the port, so that's a great place to stop for a view of the ship. Our second stop was a banana plantation where we all enjoyed a shot of banana rum, which was definitely needed after the stress of the morning, and we learnt about the banana growing process on the island. There is also a small store where you can try and buy banana ketchup and mustard and some other items also made on the island, so a nice little stop. After the bananas stop, we headed further towards Soufri's and stopped at this small shopping area where there are vendors selling spices, jewellery and fresh banana bread. We had purchased the banana bread back in 2019 and knew we just had to pick up some more for later on in the day. So we picked up some banana bread and went back to the bus. The Cosol tour did include refreshments, so it was definitely time to have a pit and beer and continue the drive towards Soufri's.
It's nice and light.
Yeah, it's a really nice bit.
No,
I'm not, but this is like the only one I'll drink. Yeah, really nice.
Our next stop was for some breakfast, and again this was included in the tour price. As it was just 6 of us, we picked the food up from the lady who makes it all and ate as we continued the drive. But when we did the tour back in 2019 and there was a lot more people, we did stop off at a house and have a buffet breakfast, so it will depend on what size tour you have, I guess. Our next stop was the famous Soufri's volcano, and whilst the other 4 members of our group did the mud baths, which is a great option, so I do recommend it, because we had already done that back in 2019, our tour guide got us tickets to go up to the volcano instead. Once he had dropped the other 4 people off at the mud baths, he drove us up to the top of the volcano, and then we had a tour guide walk us around the volcano and gave us some information about it.
Believe it or not, that water is hot.
Oh.
That's 45 degrees Celsius.
See, it looks really refreshing.
And the brown deposit is actually iron oxide, so that water is not good for drinking. Okay. But it's very good for your skin. Joint pains, rheumatism, arthritis, even mosquito bites. That water is part of the reason why they say the mud bath makes you look and feel 10 years younger.
Okay.
Look at me. Living testimony. Now, the wall structure itself is the remnants of an old bathhouse constructed way back in the 1700s when the island was controlled by the French.
Okay.
King Louis XIV to be exact. By now, you must have read or heard of the constant battle between the British and the French for the island.
Mhm. Yeah.
14 battles lasting 126 years is the main reason everyone on the island is bilingual. In 1902, it was rebuilt by a local businessman and he named it the Vincent bathhouse. What it was used for, you know how nowadays athletes go in ice water after a game?
Yeah.
Most of those French soldiers came inside of that hot water after a day on the battlefield.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Now we know why the French lost the war. Now in the top is cold water coming in from nearby streams and lakes. But as the water gets there, again the water streaming, that's bath water. Anywhere between 28 and 30 degrees Celsius.
Oh.
Remember we're inside of the volcano.
Yeah.
And it's also lush and green. Now volcanic soil is very fertile, so plants and trees tend to thrive in regions like this. But a lot of the plants and trees on the island, they're not native. They were actually introduced by early settlers, like the bamboos.
Oh, pain.
Very invasive. They can go up to about 3 to 6 centimeters a day,
Oh my god.
especially during the wet season.
We had bamboo at home and it was an absolute nightmare.
I'm surprised you didn't wake up in the ceiling one night.
I will reach the bedroom window.
Thank you.
This water bubbles and then it goes down to the mud bath. We got workers collecting the mud in a bucket so it can cool down and then you apply it to your mud. Now the mud itself, that's a chemical reaction between iron and sulfur. That's why it's gray. It exfoliates your skin, relaxes your muscles and opens up your pores. Why do you think I'm 76 and I look this good? Now the white calcium carbonate, from that you can get the pumice stone that you use at the spa. Now the yellow is sulfur, only mineral that was mined here by both the British and the French for the production of gunpowder, matches, cosmetics, even pharmaceuticals. Today all we have to do here is to enjoy watching and smelling. So since the accident in Gabriel, the geologists were the only ones allowed to walk in there. But in 2019, they realized walking in there is like walking on eggshells. The ground is very unstable. That's why the place was still put the boxes in there. Hydrothermal monitors. They contain equipment to monitor the daily activities of the volcano. If you look closely, you can see the cables running under them. They also contain seismographs to monitor any earth movement. All that information is transmitted via satellite to the Seismic Research Center on the island of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
So on that island, they monitor the live volcanoes of the Caribbean.
Oh, so all of them they monitor?
19 live volcanoes from the island.
Oh, geez. Yeah, they all are.
From Sable all the way down to Grenada. That's what gives that archipelago shape you see on the world map. Now, Saint Lucia is the only island that has a caldera as its volcano. To give you an idea as to how wide the caldera is, you see the houses on the hillside in the far distance.
Yeah.
That is the original ridge or rim of the crater. It encompasses the entire town. It goes about 3 kilometers back to the base of the peak.
Oh my goodness.
12 kilometers square. The pitons are what we call lava domes. They were formed by magma pushed up from underground. They never opened up to make a volcano, but it was straight up like a plug. They
Okay.
were formed about 300,000 years ago, making them much older than the actual caldera that we're in, that were formed about 35,000 years ago.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Every day it's like this, the bubbling, the steaming. When it changes, when it rains, more steam and the smell becomes more pungent.
Okay.
Other than that, if I come to work and I do not see this,
There's a problem.
yes, and you're looking at the next Michael Phelps. I'll be swimming out of here. And this volcano, it is called Sufi, just like the nearby town, meaning sulfur in the air and sulfur in the atmosphere.
There's quite a few volcanoes called Soufri, isn't there, around the
It
Caribbean?
has to do with the French. Yeah. So this shows the French dominance on the island.
Yeah.
So whenever the French took charge, most times they started to name a place because they wanted to actually colonize the entire place. So the British and the French, they were in a constant battle of wars throughout the world. Not only here in the Caribbean, but in America, in how much places, even in Europe. It's this is like the biggest sibling rivalry, British and French.
After the tour of the volcano, we picked up the other members of the tour and headed to our next stop, which was the waterfall, where you can get in and go into the waterfall, which was really nice. We then headed down to Soufri's port to get the boat over to the beach between the Pitons. Once at the beach, we had an hour or so to relax, swim or snorkel before we headed back to Soufri's. Once back on land, we made our way back towards Castries, stopping along the way for another snack before getting dropped off at the port. Our guide was brilliant and really looked after us throughout the tour. We had plenty of food and drink and were kept well hydrated. You pay cash for the tour at the end, and it was well worth the money in our opinion, even with the COVID measures in place at the time. We had a quick look around the port before it was time to get back on board Azura and enjoy our banana bread on the balcony whilst we sailed away. The last island before heading back to Barbados was Grenada. Having visited the island back in 2019, we decided to book the Fort George and Beach Club excursion with P&O, which was different to what we had done previously. The tour involved a tour of Fort George before heading to a beach club for a couple of hours of relaxing and bobbing around in the sea. The tour of Fort George was really interesting and provided us with some great views of the ship and the surrounding port. The price included a drink at the beach club, sun lounges, and I think some food. Apart from our tour, the beach was almost empty and it was so peaceful. It wasn't really a place for snorkeling as there was nothing really to see under the water, but the water was stunning and the beach was beautiful. I spent most of the time bobbing in the sea and watching the crabs dip in and out of their homes in the sand. We then headed back to the ship for some lunch and relaxed on the balcony as the clouds rolled in. After watching sail away, we then got ready for our final formal night of the cruise and enjoyed a fantastic meal in the main dining room. We went with Marco's recommendation and it was a fantastic meal with a lovely glass of bubbly to accompany it. The next day was our final sea day as we made our way back to Barbados, and this was spent relaxing, enjoying another afternoon tea and packing our cases before a final meal in the main dining room. We arrived in a not so sunny Barbados, preparing us for the weather back home, and were joined by several ships in port. In the morning we said goodbye to our cabin and headed down to the main dining room for our final breakfast. We then decided to relax by the aqua pool for the morning before it was time to disembark and head to the airport and head home after a fantastic 2 weeks on board P&Os Azura. I just want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon with a new Azura vlog as we head to the Canaries in March. Thank you!